I landed in Atlanta on a Tuesday morning. No welcome home sign, no hugs, no, we missed you. Just the usual stale airport air and a taxi driver who barely looked up when I gave him the address. I didn't expect much. That's the trick when you come from a family like mine, you keep the bar low, or you trip over your own hopes. The drive back to Beaumont was 2 hours of silence and gas station coffee. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want to hear Mom's voice go flat with that usual, "Oh, you're coming?" tone. Surprise works better in families like ours. At least they don't have time to fake enthusiasm. When we pulled into the driveway, Mom was already outside with the mail. She looked at me, then the uniform, then the suitcase, like she wasn't sure if it was really me or some military recruitment ad come to life. I gave her a quick smile. She gave me a half shrug and a, "You didn't call." I said, "Yeah. Thought I'd just show up." She nodded like I told her I brought milk. "Well, come on in, Courtney's got a fundraiser tomorrow, big one." "Not a, how've you been?" "Not a, you look healthy." Just straight to Courtney, of course, always Courtney. Inside, nothing had changed. Same curtains, same furniture, same passive-aggressive energy hovering like smoke, the smell of lemon cleaner and reheated coffee. I dropped my bag by the hallway and stood there while she kept talking about Courtney's event, who was coming, how the mayor's wife donated a signed football, as if I'd flown across the world for that kind of update. I sat at the kitchen table while she wiped down a perfectly clean counter for the third time. "You hungry?" "Not really." She glanced at my uniform again, hesitated, then finally asked, "Still in the army, huh?" "Yeah, promoted last fall." She blinked. "What's that now, Lieutenant?" "Major." She let out a soft huh, like I'd told her the weather in Kansas. I watched her look past me, like the uniform meant less than a PTA badge. She didn't ask what I did, where I'd been, if I was safe, tired, proud, angry, nothing, just Major and silence. I changed the subject. "How's the porch holding up?" "It leans when it rains." That was our relationship. I brought rank, she brought porch talk, even trade. Later that evening, Courtney called. I didn't hear the full conversation, but I caught the part where Mom said, "Yes, she's here. No, she didn't tell me. Yes, same hair, still plain. No, I don't know if she's dating anyone." It's like I wasn't 38 with a career, but 14 with acne. That night, I unpacked in the guest room. Not my old room, Courtney had turned that into a craft space. My medals were in a shoebox under a pile of dusty glue guns and fake flower arrangements. I didn't bother digging them out. I lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling fan wobble slightly, and thought about how many countries I'd stood in, how many lives I'd helped move forward, while my own family still had me filed under the quiet one who left. Mateo called around 9, his voice was steady, familiar. "You home?" I said, "Physically." He laughed softly. "And mentally?" I said, "Let's give that a few days." He got it. He always did. The next morning, I came down early. Mom was already dressed, scrolling on her tablet. I poured coffee. She didn't look up. "You going to Courtney's event tonight?" she asked. "Didn't plan on it." "She'll ask why." I sipped. "Let her." She looked at me then. "You know, she's been doing a lot for this town. I've done a few things myself." Her silence said it all. Right then, something in me locked into place. Maybe it was years coming, maybe it was just the jet lag mixing with emotional exhaustion. But I realized I could stop trying to explain myself. I could stop earning a seat at a table that never wanted me anyway. And here's the thing, sometimes, silence is the only way to prove you've outgrown the room. If you've ever walked into your own house and felt like a stranger, tell me in the comments, and hit subscribe. This story doesn't get quieter. Mom reminded me to not make things tense. I nodded, that was my role. Quiet, agreeable, presentable. The one who wore the uniform but didn't bring it up. Courtney was the one who brought the spotlight. I was the one who dimmed it so she could shine brighter. Fine. I showered, shaved, buttoned up my uniform again. I had plans today. Not to impress anyone, just Personal business. I told Mom I'd be out a few hours. She asked where I was going. I said, to buy a gift. She didn't ask for who. I didn't offer. And I walked out like I belonged somewhere else entirely. The gift wasn't expensive, but it meant something, and that made it risky. I parked a block away from the jewelry store. It wasn't about being seen, it was about not being seen by them. My family didn't know much about my relationship, and I planned to keep it that way. Mateo and I agreed, quiet was safer. Bailey and Row was a small, local place. No big-name brands, no pushy salespeople, just glass cases and quiet lighting. I liked that. It felt like a space that didn't ask questions. I told the woman behind the counter I was looking for something small, strong, and personal. She showed me a brushed silver ID bracelet. No diamonds, no sparkle. Just weight. That's what I wanted. Something with weight. While I waited for them to engrave it, I texted Mateo. Silver. Clean, simple. Says. This wasn't for anyone else. He replied. Just like you. He smiled. For 10 seconds, I felt like myself again. When I got back to the house, Courtney's SUV was already in the driveway. Great. I walked in and saw her leaning against the kitchen counter, holding a glass of wine at 3:45 p.m. She looked me up and down like I was a catalog order that showed up defective. You're wearing that again? She said, motioning to my uniform. It's not a costume, Court. Still feels like overkill to wear it around town. I shrugged. I earned it. Okay, G.I. Jane, she muttered, walking past me. Dinner was just the three of us. Courtney brought some overpriced kale salad from that market that sells candles next to produce. Mom insisted on setting the table, nice, like it was a holiday. I guess in her mind, having both daughters under one roof without screaming was reason enough to use real napkins. We ate mostly in silence, until Courtney started talking about her fundraiser. Apparently the mayor was coming, plus 2 minor celebrities she wouldn't name. She went on about seating charts like she was planning a NATO summit. And Riley, she said, looking at me mid-chew, maybe don't wear your fatigues if you show up. Kinda sends the wrong message. What message is that? That you're trying too hard. Mom didn't say anything. Just sipped her wine and looked between us like a tennis match she'd already lost interest in. I asked Courtney, what message does it send when someone builds their entire personality around press releases and staged smiles? She leaned forward. At least people know what I do. I pushed my plate back. They don't have to know. That's the point. Courtney smiled like she'd won something. Still hiding behind the tough girl act, huh? That was her game, always was. Push buttons until someone snaps, then call them dramatic. I stood, grabbed my dish, and started toward the sink. Mom finally spoke. Court, maybe let it go. Courtney snorted. I'm just saying it's a little much. I mean, she's what, driving trucks for the army? We get it, you wear boots, we salute you. I turned, drying my hands on a dish towel. Do you even know what I do? Courtney tilted her head. Does it matter? It's all the same, right? You follow orders, drive around, yell at people. Anyone with a decent GPA can do that. Mom stayed quiet, eyes on her plate. No defense, no redirect. Just silence, the kind that doesn't just say, I'm staying out of this, but I don't disagree enough to get involved. I didn't say anything else. Arguing with Courtney was like yelling at a locked door. She'd already decided who I was, and facts wouldn't change that. I cleaned up, loaded the dishwasher, wiped the counter, automatic. Like brushing your teeth after a funeral. Courtney left right after dessert. Kissed Mom on the cheek, said, love you, didn't look at me. I was halfway up the stairs when I heard Mom say, you know she means well. I paused. She slapped me in the hallway when we were 16, you said the same thing then. She was a teenager. She's 40. Silence. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through photos Mateo had sent. He was smiling next to a mountain lake somewhere in Bavaria. He looked so relaxed it hurt to look at him. He deserved better than a woman who couldn't even eat dinner in her childhood home without bracing for impact. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling again, still wobbling, still hanging by the same wire. The next morning, I came downstairs early, again. I was making coffee when Mom came in. She looked at me like she'd been thinking all night. "I wish you two got along," she said. "I wish you didn't pick sides." She didn't respond. Then, "Are you going to the jewelry store again today?" "Number, I picked it up yesterday." "Gift for someone?" I nodded. "You gonna tell me who?" "Number." She didn't ask again. I finished my coffee, put on my jacket, and walked out the door. No goodbyes, no plans, just motion. It was easier to keep moving than to explain where I was going. I drove out past the edge of town, where cell signal dropped in and out between long patches of trees. It was the only place I could think clearly where the radio didn't cut through my head, and I didn't have to hear my mother moving dishes around the kitchen like Morse code for guilt. There was a spot by the river I used to go to when I was younger. Back then, it was mostly about escaping Courtney's mouth and Mom's silence. Now it felt like neutral ground. No uniforms, no expectations, just gravel, mud, and air that didn't ask anything from me. I sat on the hood of my car, checked the time. Mateo should have just gotten off shift. I called. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, trouble." I smirked. "You have no idea." He said nothing for a second, then, "How bad?" I exhaled. "Let's just say Courtney still thinks I drive trucks and yell at interns." Sounds like growth. From her? No, from you. You used to punch walls after conversations like that. I'd punch her if she weren't biologically linked. He chuckled. "That's restraint. We love restraint." I kicked some gravel with my boot. I picked up the bracelet. "And? It's perfect. Did you get it engraved?" "Yeah, your initials, plus the deployment date, nothing cheesy." "Cheesy is fine. I don't cheese it. Which is why I trust you with my life," he said. The line went quiet for a second. Comfortable. No static, no awkwardness. Then he said, "Have you told them about me?" Number. Okay. No, like, not yet, not never, just, not yet. I get it. They'd ask questions I don't want to answer. Like what? Like why I'm dating someone smarter than Courtney. He laughed again. "That's your metric?" "No, but it helps." I paused. "I just don't want them dragging you into it. I signed up for you, not them. I know the difference." I didn't say anything. "Just let that settle." Then he added, "Don't give them control of your story, Riley." That one hit. After the call, I stayed out there a while. The clouds started piling up. Georgia summer storms don't knock. They just show up and flip the sky. I didn't mind. A little rain was honest. I got back to town around 4. Stopped at the post office, grabbed a coffee. Thought about dropping by the base to say hi to some people, but decided against it. I didn't feel like putting on that version of myself today. When I pulled into the driveway, Courtney's car was there again. Of course. I took my time getting out. The last thing I wanted was another round of family politics disguised as small talk. Inside, Mom was ironing napkins. Napkins. Courtney was at the dining table, typing something on her laptop and talking on the phone at the same time. She waved her fingers at me like I was a dog in training. I ignored her, went to the kitchen, poured some water. She was mid-pitch on the phone, something about sponsorship tiers and gift bags. When she hung up, she looked over and said, "You gonna show up tomorrow or nah?" "Depends. On? If I feel like watching people lie to each other in business casual." She leaned back, smirking. "You should come, could help your networking." "I have a job." "That's cute." I set my glass down. "You know, for someone who constantly talks about exposure and reputation, you're remarkably casual about disrespecting a U.S. Army officer in her own mother's kitchen." Mom spoke up, still ironing. "Girls, please." Courtney kept going. "You don't want respect, you want to feel special, it's not the same thing." I want facts to matter. You want a spotlight. I built mine. I earned mine. Mom turned, holding a napkin like it was a white flag. Can't we just have one day where this doesn't turn into a contest? I stared at her. It's not a contest. She's the only one playing. Courtney stood up. Okay, you want to walk around town in your uniform like it's a damn superhero cape? Fine. But don't expect applause. I looked at her. I don't want applause. I want a family that doesn't treat me like I faked my whole life. She rolled her eyes. God, you're dramatic. Yeah, I said. That's what they call women who don't apologize for existing. She grabbed her bag and left, door slam and all. Mom didn't say anything for a while. Just went back to folding napkins like the fate of the world depended on perfect corners. Then she said, "Don't let her get to you. She's been getting to me since I was born. She's under a lot of pressure. So am I. I just don't make other people bleed for it." Mom sat down. Looked tired. Older than she did yesterday. You still seeing that man? I nodded. You serious about him? Yeah. Then maybe you should stop hiding it. That one stung, mostly because it was true. But I didn't say that. I just nodded again and said, "I'll think about it." She patted my hand. It felt like a gesture from someone who didn't know what else to offer. I got up, took my glass to the sink, and rinsed it out slowly. The window over the sink looked out onto the backyard. Same fence, same dying azaleas. Nothing changes unless you force it. Even then, most things resist. I dried my hands, set the towel down, and left the room without saying a word. The store felt smaller the second time, like the air knew something I didn't. I didn't plan to see anyone I knew that day. I just wanted to pick up a box, thank the clerk, and leave. In and out. Clean. No stories, no drama. Just a gift that meant something for someone who mattered. The bracelet was ready. I checked the engraving again, MRC, the 11th of July. Just the initials, just the date, quiet and clear, like Mateo. The woman at the counter wrapped it in a navy box with a small white ribbon. She smiled like she knew it wasn't just a piece of metal. I thanked her, slid the box into my pocket, and turned toward the door. And then I heard the voice I'd know through a hurricane. "Well, isn't this a surprise? Courtney." I didn't even need to look. That tone came with its own weather system. She walked in with her heels loud and her perfume louder. "Didn't take you for the jewelry type," she said, eyeing the counter. "Buying something for yourself?" I didn't answer. She smiled like that counted as a win. "What? No witty comeback, you're slipping." "I'm not in the mood, Courtney." "Really? You're dressed like you're going to war." I looked down. Combat uniform, name patch, rank, regulation, clean, not for war, just routine. She smirked. "You wear that just to pick up a bracelet? Little dramatic, don't you think?" "It's my uniform." "I get that. But come on, this is Beaumont. You look like you're trying to prove something." "I'm not." "Then. Could have fooled me." I stepped past her, aiming for the door. She followed, heels tapping in rhythm with the pounding in my head. "You know," she added, lowering her voice, "just because you wear that doesn't mean people see you any different. They still remember who you were." I turned. Who was that? The awkward girl who didn't get asked to prom, who hid in the garage reading manuals while the rest of us had lives. I nodded once. "Yeah. And now I lead 38 people through classified ops while you host wine raffles." That hit. She stepped closer. "You think this makes you special? Number, you think it makes me less." She laughed. Loud enough that 2 other customers turned to look. "Oh my God. You actually believe the hype, you think you're better than us." "I think I'm tired." "Of what?" "Pretending like your opinion matters." That wiped the smile. She looked me over one more time. "You're just a toy soldier playing dress-up, you don't belong in this world." And then she slapped me. Right there, in the middle of Bailey and Roe, her hand cracked against my cheek like it was rehearsed. I didn't move. Didn't flinch, The room went still. A glass case clicked as someone behind the counter froze mid-swipe. I stood there, uniform straight, jaw tight. My eyes didn't leave hers. A man in uniform walked over from behind one of the displays. Not mine, his was sharper, cleaner. Silver oak leaves. Colonel rank. He had short gray hair, steady eyes, and a voice that didn't rise when it spoke. "Ma'am," he said, facing Courtney, "you just put your hands on a U.S. Army officer." Courtney blinked, confused. The colonel turned to me. "Major?" I nodded. He looked back at her. "You just committed assault, in uniform, in public, on federal grounds, technically." I didn't mean. "I suggest you take a breath and step away." She looked around. People were watching now. Phones were out. I said step away. Courtney backed off, her face pale. Mouth open like she wanted to spin it. Nothing came out. The colonel turned to me again. "You okay, Major?" "I'm fine, sir." He nodded. "You want to press charges?" "Not today." He paused. Then said, "Let me know if that changes." He looked back at her one more time. "Touch her again, and see what happens." Then he turned and walked out, quiet and clean. The store was dead silent. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. I picked up the small navy box from the counter and left. Outside, the sun was too bright. My skin felt hot where she hit me. It wasn't the pain, it was the humiliation. Not because I cared what people saw, because she did it like it cost nothing. I walked 2 blocks before I stopped. Saturday on a bench by the hardware store. Took out the bracelet box, opened it again. Still there. Still solid. I didn't cry. Not because I was tough, because I was tired. My phone buzzed. "Mateo." I didn't answer. I closed the box, slid it back into my pocket, leaned back, and watched the clouds move like they had somewhere better to be. The slap didn't sting, but the silence afterward did. I didn't move from that bench for a while. The town kept going, cars, chatter, someone's kid crying about a dropped snow cone, but it all sounded far off. Everything felt distant, except for the heat on my face where her hand had landed. That part stayed close. I replayed the colonel's voice in my head. Calm. Precise. No yelling, no theatrics. Just presence. He didn't need to raise his voice because the room had already surrendered to him. I'd seen that kind of leadership before, but never directed at someone defending me. When I finally stood up, I didn't go straight home, I walked. Past the courthouse, the church with the crooked steeple, the park where Courtney used to flirt with boys and I used to sit on the bleachers alone. Everything in this town had her fingerprints on it. But today, the narrative cracked. I stopped at a diner and ordered coffee I didn't want. The server recognized me, but couldn't place where from. That was fine. Better that way. While I stirred sugar into a cup I wasn't going to drink, my phone lit up. 5 missed calls from Mom. 2 texts. Courtney's upset. Call me. What happened at the store? No. Are you okay? No. Do you need anything? Typical. I didn't reply. Another text came through while I was staring at the steam from the cup. Unknown number. Major Lancaster, Colonel Connolly here. If you need anything following today's incident, here's my direct line. He included a number, no fluff, just facts, just like the man himself. I saved it, then immediately locked my phone and slid it face down. The coffee cooled untouched. When I got back to the house, Courtney's SUV was gone. Mom was in the living room with the news on, volume low. She muted it when I walked in. That was a bad sign. She didn't say hi. Just. I heard about what happened. I dropped my keys on the counter. You heard, or she called crying. She ignored that. Did you really let a colonel threaten her in public? He didn't threaten her, he told her to stop hitting people in uniform. She didn't mean to. She's 41, Mom. She doesn't trip and slap someone by accident. Mom stood up like that, made her argument stronger. She's embarrassed. She should be. You know how people twist things. I didn't twist anything. She hit me. I stood still. She looked at me, then glanced toward the window, like someone might be watching. Do you want this all over the internet? I narrowed my eyes. It's already out there? She looked down. A clip. Someone posted it. It's spreading. Perfect. Please don't engage. Don't post anything. Don't make it worse. By existing? She sighed. By escalating. I walked past her. I'm not the one who escalated, Mom. I'm the one who didn't hit back. In my room, I finally sat down, took off my boots, rubbed my eyes. The video would spread. People love drama. They love the idea of a soldier being slapped by her own sister in a small-town jewelry store. It's got everything: family tension, military, public spectacle. I could already hear the TikTok voiceovers. But that wasn't what bothered me. What bothered me was that I hadn't done anything wrong, and yet somehow I was still expected to carry the burden of everyone else's feelings. Courtney's ego. Mom's image. The town's whispers. Like it was my responsibility to smooth it all over. I reached for the bracelet box again. Still intact. Still sharp at the corners. I ran my thumb over the lid and thought about Mateo. He'd ask me if I was okay. He'd say I handled it better than he would have. He'd offer me quiet, which is all I wanted right now. I sat there holding the box, the house around me too quiet, too tense. The walls felt like they were waiting for me to do something that would keep everyone comfortable. I wasn't interested in comfort. I was interested in clarity. The only thing that shifted that day wasn't the slap, or the video, or the colonel stepping in. It was the fact that for the first time in a long time I didn't feel like the one who needed to shrink. The first time I saw the video, it already had 11,000 views. I didn't go looking for it. I was trying to order lunch, scrolling through the delivery app, when someone's screen-recorded clip popped up in my suggested feed. It started mid-slap. The camera jerked, someone gasped, and then Colonel Connolly's voice came through crystal clear: touch her again, and see what happens. No title, no backstory, just chaos. It had captions in bold yellow. It had slow motion. It had dramatic music, someone layered on top of it. The internet had already made it into something bigger than me. I clicked the comments because of course I did. The top one. Imagine slapping a soldier in public and thinking it's fine, girl, I'd disappear from Earth. The second. The way she stood there and didn't even blink. Power. Then another. That uniform's doing more work than her whole family ever did. I should have felt seen. I felt sick. I locked my phone and left it on the dresser. Pacing didn't help. Coffee didn't help. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, with my hands clenched between my knees. By noon, the clip had over 300,000 views. Someone on Twitter was already calling it America's real-life soap opera. A lifestyle blogger reposted it with some nonsense about feminine strength in uniform. A verified blue check posted a still of my face with the lifestyle blogger 90zo. Caption: "This is what grace under fire looks like." Then, I didn't feel graceful. I felt exhausted. Then came the texts. Old classmates. Former coworkers. A distant cousin I hadn't heard from since high school graduation. All of them suddenly checking in. One message just said, "Hey, saw the video, damn, you good?" Another, "Tell your sister to keep her hands to herself, Lama." Even people I barely knew had opinions about me, my family, my career. They turned a 2-minute confrontation into a full-blown narrative. And I wasn't even the one telling it. I drove to the base that afternoon. Not for work. Just to breathe. The MPs at the gate nodded as I passed. One of them gave a quiet, "Ma'am." I wasn't used to that around here. Inside, the usual rhythms played out: soldiers walking between buildings, vehicles being checked, orders being shouted. All of it felt real. Familiar. Nobody cared about drama here. Just rank, responsibility, and results. I parked, got out, leaned against the hood, and watched a group of cadets run drills across the field. One of the younger officers jogged by, slowed down when he saw me. Major Lancaster? Yeah? He smiled awkwardly. Just wanted to say, that video. That was something. I raised an eyebrow. That so? He cleared his throat. I mean, it was impressive. You held your ground, ma'am. Appreciate it. He gave a stiff nod and jogged off. I stayed a while longer, just standing there. I wasn't looking for validation, but I couldn't deny how strange it felt to finally be noticed in the town that used to treat me like furniture. By early evening, the video had cracked 1 million views. Hashtags were trending. People started piecing together my identity from service photos online. Some got it right. Some didn't. One blog said I was a lieutenant colonel, another said I worked in logistics. Someone even claimed I was part of a secret Pentagon task force. It was ridiculous and not even the worst part. The worst part was that now, suddenly, people cared. Not when I deployed, not when I got promoted, not when I led missions or managed teams or handled high-pressure decision-making that most civilians will never understand. No, they cared now because someone slapped me in a jewelry store. I got home around 7. The living room was dark. Mom was in her chair, watching the local news. And there it was me. In grainy footage. Frozen mid-reaction, with the lower third graphic. Viral video, soldier slapped in family dispute. The anchor said, no charges have been filed, but the Army has confirmed the woman in uniform is indeed a decorated officer currently home on leave. Mom muted the television before I could say anything. They showed it twice already, she said, eyes still on the screen, your face. I didn't sit. They reached out, she added, the news, they want to interview you. Of course they do. Boo. Courtney says this could ruin her business. I scoffed. She did that part herself. Mom looked at me then, tired. You could help fix this. I already did. By not hitting her back. She said nothing. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself water, stood in the doorway sipping it. I don't want to be part of this circus, I said. You already are. I didn't choose it. Maybe not. But people are watching. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Being seen was never the goal. I just wanted peace. But peace doesn't trend. The news made it official, but my family's silence said everything first. The next morning started the same way most bad days do, quiet, but tense. I came downstairs to find Mom at the kitchen table with a lukewarm cup of tea and her Bible open but untouched. She wasn't reading. She was staring, like the pages would rewrite themselves if she waited long enough. She looked up at me, eyes puffy. They called again, she said. Who? The station, Channel 7, they want to do an in-depth. Neil. I poured myself coffee and didn't answer. They said it could clear things up, maybe shift the narrative. I stirred the coffee. There's no narrative to shift. What happened, happened. She took a shaky breath. You're not helping her. That's not my job. She's your sister. She assaulted a soldier in uniform. She lost her biggest donor yesterday. Good. Mom flinched, like I'd cursed in church. She's not evil, Riley. She just what? Misjudged the angle of her swing? Misunderstood where my face was? She snapped. No, she calculated. That's what she does. She sees attention as oxygen and chokes anyone who breathes more than her. She's hurting. So am I. That ended the conversation. Not with agreement. With the kind of silence that grows teeth. By noon, Courtney had posted a video 3 minutes long, perfectly lit, full makeup, holding a mug with her brand logo on it. She started crying around the 40-second mark, not enough to smear mascara, just enough to go viral again. She never said my name. Just a loved one, never took responsibility, just deep emotions and personal struggles. She even slipped in a quote about women needing to support each other more. I wanted to punch the screen. The comments were split. Half calling her manipulative, half calling me cold for not accepting her apology, which, to be clear, hadn't actually happened. Someone tagged me in a reaction video. I turned off notifications after that. I went to the back porch, sat in the old rocking chair that creaked like a lie, and stared out at the fence. Same broken panel, still not fixed. I used to hate that fence. Now it felt like the only honest thing on the property. The door creaked open behind me. Mom stepped out with a second mug of coffee and handed it to me like that made us even. "She's not sleeping," she said. "She should try remorse." 1. She's still your sister. That title doesn't make her immune. She's scared. Of consequences? Of losing you. That one made me pause. She never had me, I said. She had the version of me that stayed quiet while she did whatever she wanted. Mom sat down beside me, careful with her words. "I know you think I took her side. Because you did." She was always louder. "That's one word for it. You were strong. I thought you didn't need it." I looked at her. "You mean validation?" She didn't deny it. "You were always put together," she continued. "Didn't cry, got straight to work, like your dad." I held my mug tighter. "You know why I didn't cry, right? Because when I did, she called me weak. And you agreed." She shook her head. "I didn't agree. You didn't stop her." The wind shifted. A neighbor's wind chime played something almost melodic. "Almost. She's not the only one embarrassed," Mom said. He blinked. "Excuse me? This whole thing, it's made us look." "There it is." She looked away. "You're not upset she hit me," I said. "You're upset she did it where people could see." She didn't deny that either. I stood up, set my coffee down on the railing. My hands were shaking just enough for me to notice. I wasn't sad. I was boiling. "You raised 2 daughters, Mom, one who needs a spotlight to breathe, and one you only noticed when the light hit her too." She didn't look up. I walked back inside. My phone rang. "Mateo." I answered this time. "Hey," he said gently. "Hey. You good?" I didn't lie. "No." "You want me to come out there?" "Number." "Then say something real." I sat on the armrest of the couch and looked at the blank television screen. "I feel like I'm fighting a war I didn't enlist in." He didn't fill the silence. Then he said, "You want to come here?" I exhaled. "I want to go anywhere where I'm not just someone's disappointment." "You're not. Helibe. They just forgot who I am." "No," he said, "they never bothered to learn." I leaned back and let those words settle. He always knew how to say it in half the time it took me to feel it. The more noise they made, the quieter I got, and it scared them. I didn't post a single thing. No statement. No clarification. No hashtags. Let them guess. Let them spin it how they wanted. The truth wasn't up for a public vote. Courtney, on the other hand, went into full campaign mode. She followed up her tearful video with a second one, this time featuring her fiancé, some dramatic piano music, and a quote about healing through shared adversity. She never mentioned me directly, but her eyes kept drifting just enough for people to know exactly who the hurt had come from. The local paper called the house 3 times. Mom finally stopped answering. Her friends from church kept dropping off notes and banana bread, each one signed with something passive like, "Thinking of you both during this difficult moment." What moment? The one where her daughter got slapped for being a soldier? I wasn't part of those conversations. I was just the backdrop. I started going on long drives, past the county line, into areas where the GPS got confused. I brought Mateo's bracelet with me everywhere I went, not to show it off. Just to remind myself that someone out there knew who I was, without needing an explanation. Sometimes I'd pull off onto a gravel turnout, sit on the hood, and just listen. No earbuds, no music. Just wind. It was the only sound that didn't want anything from me. One afternoon, I stopped at a hardware store off Highway 27. I wasn't looking for anything specific, but the act of wandering through aisles of nails and rope and stubborn tools felt grounding. The kind of place where nobody cares what's trending, as long as your truck runs and your bills are paid. A man behind the counter, gray beard, faded flannel, looked up when I approached with a pair of work gloves. "You're that soldier girl from the video, right?" He hesitated. He nodded, like I didn't have to confirm. "Good on you. Standing still like that. Took guts." I nodded once. "Thanks. You press charges?" "Number. Smart, let 'em hang themselves with their own rope." I paid and walked out. Didn't look back. It hit me then, not everyone wanted a show. Some people just respected the silence. At dinner that night, Mom made chicken casserole. She set the table like nothing had happened, even used cloth napkins again. As if the right linen could cancel out public shame. I ate slowly, not out of awkwardness, but to make it last. It was the first meal we'd had together in 2 days where the television wasn't on in the background. Halfway through, she said, "I talked to Reverend Miles." "About what?" "You." I waited. "He said what happened wasn't your fault, said you showed discipline, Grace." I didn't respond. I kept eating. "He also said Courtney might need to step back from the church board for a while." "All for." I set down my fork. She agreed? "Number. But I think it's coming." I looked across the table. "So now people believe me because a man in a collar says I was dignified?" She flinched. "That's the problem," I said. "You don't hear me until someone else translates it into language you respect." She folded her hands like she was praying without meaning to. "You're angry." "I'm accurate. She's still your sister. She's still your problem." She didn't argue. After dinner, I rinsed my plate and walked out to the porch again. Same rocking chair, same creaky rhythm. I sat with the sound of bugs and humidity, letting the stillness do what words couldn't pour. My phone buzzed. A text from Mateo. I'd have tackled her, just saying. I smiled, then typed back. "You'd have ruined your clearance." "Worth it." "Not to me." He called. I picked up. "You okay?" "Better." "You need a break from there." "Probably. Come out for the weekend." I can't leave her right now." "Why?" "Because if I do, she wins." He paused. "I didn't know it was a war." "It's not. But she thinks it is." "Well, in that case, you're already winning." I looked out at the horizon, the sun dipping just enough to leave everything in a haze. "Funny," I said, "doesn't feel like winning." "It never does until after," he said. "Real power is quiet, loud people hate that." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The quiet said more than I could. You can't explain who you are to people who decided a long time ago who you aren't. The next morning, I found myself digging through the old storage closet at the back of the hallway. Not for anything specific, just instinct. The closet was filled with the usual graveyard of family life, winter coats no one wore, dusty photo albums, mismatched luggage, the old box fan that never quite worked. And then I saw it, an army green duffel bag with my name stenciled across the side. My first deployment bag. Beat up, frayed at the handles, still faintly smelling like sand and diesel. Inside, beneath a balled-up sweatshirt, was a worn-out notebook. Spiral-bound, the pages half stuck together, corners dog-eared and dirt-smudged. It was my deployment log from Iraq, stuff I'd written when the days were long and the nights were longer. Nothing classified, just real. I flipped through it slowly. A note about convoy delays. A joke someone made during chow. A drawing of our barracks someone had doodled while bored. Then one entry caught my eye. The 9th of April. Insurgent fire around midnight, nobody hurt. But I lay awake thinking about Courtney's birthday. Bet she's mad I didn't call. Not sure she even remembers where I am. I closed the notebook. My jaw tightened. That was the thing. They never saw the nights we didn't sleep. The way we all stared at the ceiling hoping the generator kept humming. The calls I missed, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want them hearing explosions in the background. They only saw the uniform in photos. And even then, they saw it like a Halloween costume, not something earned. Downstairs, the front door opened. Courtney's voice spilled into the hallway. "I just need 5 minutes." Mom said something low. I couldn't hear it. Then footsteps. heels. Too fast for calm, too slow for apology. She stepped into the living room like she owned it, which, in her mind, she probably did. "I came to talk," she said. I stayed on the stairs, halfway down. Not inviting. Not hiding. She turned toward me. "Look, I know this has gotten out of hand." I raised an eyebrow. "This? You mean the assault or the monetized apology?" Her face twitched. I was overwhelmed. No. By what? My presence? My rank? Or the fact that someone finally saw through your nonsense? I was trying to protect the event. The mayor was there. You were trying to protect your image. Let's not rewrite it. She glanced at Mom, who stayed near the dining room, hands wringing a dish towel like it owed her money. "I just think," Courtney continued, "we're both strong women, and strong women sometimes clash." I laughed. "You hit me. It was emotional. It was public. It wasn't supposed to be. That's your defense?" She shifted her weight. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "Oh, I don't?" She crossed her arms. "Not this kind of pressure." "No, you're right," I said. "I only know the pressure of keeping people alive, making sure my team doesn't die. Getting decisions right in under 10 seconds while holding a radio in one hand and a bleeding soldier in the other. But hey, tell me more about coordinating seating charts." She looked stunned. Like I'd hit her in a language she couldn't translate. I kept going. "You want to talk about growing up? About why I don't call? It's because every time I did something right, you found a way to make it wrong. I made varsity? You made captain. I got a scholarship? You hosted a pageant. I got deployed? You called it a phase. I was just trying to keep the family balanced. You were trying to stay the center of it." She looked down. "Finally. You're not the villain, Court. But you're not the victim either. You hit me in front of strangers because you couldn't stand that someone respected me for once." She didn't deny it. She didn't even cry. She just stood there, frozen, like she didn't have a script for what happens when someone doesn't fold. "I'm not asking you to apologize," I said. "I'm just telling you the truth. Do whatever you want with it." I walked past her, out the door, into the heat. The kind of southern summer air that wraps around your neck and dares you to complain. I didn't. I got in the car, rolled the windows down, and turned the radio off. I didn't need music. I just needed movement. The knock wasn't loud, but it carried weight, the kind that doesn't need volume to make its point. I'd only been home 30 minutes, just long enough to change into a clean t-shirt and sweatpants and make it halfway through reheating leftover casserole. Then came the knock. 3 short taps. Not the kind you get from a neighbor dropping off sugar. This was practiced. Intentional. I opened the door. Colonel Connolly stood on the porch, same crisp uniform, same unbothered expression. Behind him was a young female officer, maybe mid-22nd, also in dress uniform. Her name tag read Jackson. "Major Lancaster," he said. "You have a moment?" I stepped aside without answering. He didn't need permission, he had presence. They stepped in, scanned the room like soldiers do, habit, not suspicion. "I hope this isn't a bad time," Connolly said. "Depends on how you define bad." That made the corner of his mouth twitch. Almost a smile. Jackson stood behind him, still and composed, like she'd been briefed on every possible reaction I might have. "We've been monitoring the situation," he said, "no small talk, and HQ wants to make sure you're okay. On record." "I'm fine." Jackson nodded slightly. She pulled a notepad from her inner jacket pocket. "This is more than a wellness check," Connolly continued. "With the footage circulating, your conduct has drawn attention. Positive attention. Lucky May." End quote. He looked at me directly. "You held posture, kept discipline, and maintained military bearing while being physically provoked in uniform. That doesn't go unnoticed." Jackson added, "The public perception of your response has become significant." "Because I didn't slap her back?" "Because you represented the uniform well." I leaned against the counter. So, what? You want to make me a poster soldier now? We're not here to exploit you, he said. We're here to offer options. Debt. Options? There's a pending opening for a public relations advisory position at Regional Command. Temporary, but influential. It comes with relocation, staff, and the freedom to shape message policy. I blinked. Because of a slap? Because of what you did after the slap, he corrected. You stayed composed, you didn't retaliate, you held the line. I looked at Jackson. She kept writing. Let me guess, I said. I'd be the face of military grace. A woman officer who knows how to take a hit and not punch back. No, Connolly said. You'd be the face of accountability. Which, right now, the Army could use more of. I studied him for a second. This is politics. This is leadership, he replied, and your silence spoke louder than most people's speeches. He let that hang. I crossed my arms. What if I say no? You stay on your current path, go back to your unit, nothing changes. Lech. And if I say yes? You help shape how we respond to these moments. Internally. Externally. You write the policy instead of getting written into it. I looked down at my feet. This wasn't about the slap anymore. It never really was. This was about what happens when the world finally looks your way and you get to decide what they see. He checked his watch. We're not asking for a decision now. But I'd consider it carefully. Opportunities like this don't always come twice. Then he placed a plain envelope on the table. Inside, I assumed, was the offer. Paper always makes things feel more official, even when everything important already happened in the room. Thank you, I said, finally. He nodded once, Major. Jackson gave a small, respectful smile, then followed him out. I didn't open the envelope, I just stared at it. This was supposed to be a quiet visit home. A recharging trip. Instead, it turned into national attention, a public slap, family drama, and now a potential new assignment that could shift my entire path. I made another cup of coffee. Saturday with it at the kitchen table. The same table where Courtney once cried over not being voted prom queen. The same table where I'd done SAT prep while mom half-watched. Now it was the table where a colonel handed me a second chance to be more than what they ever thought I'd be. The house was silent, but it didn't feel heavy anymore, just quiet. And this time, the quiet didn't feel like suppression. It felt like possibility. I wore the same uniform, but for the first time, people actually saw it. The next morning, I walked into the corner coffee shop downtown. Normally, it was a forgettable space, chipped tables, inconsistent espresso, the hum of people pretending to work on laptops. But today, everything was still. A few heads turned, I heard a whispered, "That's her." The barista stared at me a beat too long before remembering to smile. "You're, Major Lancaster, right?" I nodded. "Your drink's on the house," she added quickly. "Whatever you want." "Really? I'll take a medium black." She tapped it into the register anyway, even though she wasn't charging me. Nervous hands. Like I might report her for being too casual. I gave a polite nod and stepped aside. Someone behind me leaned in. "You handled yourself like a champ." Another voice. "Should have laid her out. But I respect the way you held back." I didn't respond. Compliments always feel a little off when they're delivered out of context, especially by strangers who saw you for 2 minutes, edited by someone else. When I turned to leave with my coffee, a woman near the front pulled out her phone and asked, "Can I get a picture?" I paused. Then shook my head, kindly. "Not today." She didn't press. But her face dropped, like I owed her something. Out on the street, someone honked and gave me a thumbs up through their window. It kept happening. A nod from the guy fixing his mailbox. A high school girl who mouthed, "You're amazing," as she passed. A police officer who tipped his hat at me like we were old friends. Suddenly I was someone because someone caught me in uniform, in a moment of restraint, on camera. The irony wasn't lost on me. All these people clapping from the sidelines, while my own mother still couldn't look me in the eye for more than 10 seconds. I stopped at the grocery store for things we didn't need: bread, milk, cereal, just to fill the cart with something. The cashier was maybe 19. He looked nervous, trying to place me. You're that army lady, right? I nodded. He hesitated. My sister's thinking about enlisting, says she wants to be like you. I scanned his face. Tell her to be better than me. He smiled, unsure if it was a joke. When I got home, Mom was in the garden pulling weeds like they owed her rent. I set the groceries down on the counter and watched her from the window. After a minute, I walked outside. She didn't look up. Need help? She kept working. You've got better things to do. Like public relations offers and internet fame. Didn't ask for that. I know. We stood in silence, side by side, pulling at roots. Then she asked, do you like the attention? Number. Then why take the job? I haven't yet. But you're thinking about it. Yeah. Though. She pulled another weed, tossed it aside. You've always been serious, even as a kid. Never dramatic, never loud. I thought you'd outgrow it. Outgrow what? Being quiet. I looked at her. It's not a flaw, Mom, it's a strategy. She wiped sweat from her forehead. You used to sit on the back steps and watch the street for hours. Never said a word. I thought something was wrong with you. There was. I lived in a house where talking didn't change anything. She looked at me then. Full on, no blinking. That's not fair. It's not false. She sighed. Courtney she needed more. She took more. She was born fragile. She was born loud. You called it fragility because that made her easier to protect. She didn't argue, she just went back to pulling weeds. I crouched down, helping without being asked. People out there, I said after a minute, they keep thanking me for what I did. But they don't know that the hardest part wasn't standing still during the slap. What was it? Not letting it turn me into someone who slaps back. She nodded slowly. I wasn't brave because I held my ground. I was brave because I didn't burn it down. She finally sat back on her heels, wiped her hands on her pants, and looked at me again. You don't owe her forgiveness, she said, but you owe yourself peace. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm just clear. She nodded once. Not approval, just understanding. And that, finally, was enough. I didn't post a video. I didn't hire a PR team, I just told the truth the way I've always told it directly. The local news station had asked for an interview 3 times. I said no the first 2. The third time, I said yes, but only under one condition: it would be live. No editing, no framing, no cuts to soften the edges. If they wanted a statement, they'd get the real one. We filmed it in the community center auditorium. I wore my uniform not out of vanity, but because it was the only outfit that had ever earned me silence from people who usually interrupted. The lights were hot. The anchor was polite but tight-lipped, like she wasn't sure if I was going to go off script or just sit there and glare. She asked her first question carefully. Major Lancaster, what do you want the public to know about what happened? I didn't blink. That it wasn't about a slap. She tilted her head. What do you mean? I mean the slap was just the part that got caught on video. But what led to it? That's the story. That's what matters. You don't get to slap someone in public without decades of buildup. So, it was about your relationship with your sister? It was about what happens when someone spends their whole life being underestimated, dismissed, told their work isn't real because it doesn't fit the family narrative, and then suddenly, the world sees it. That moment wasn't explosive, it was inevitable. The anchor didn't interrupt. I kept going. She hit me because for the first time, the spotlight wasn't hers, because people saw me. Not the version of me she's comfortable with, but the real one. The one who's led missions, buried friends, written reports no one will ever read because they're locked in clearance-only folders. I took a breath. And the reason I didn't hit back isn't because I'm above it. It's because I've been trained to understand restraint as power. Another question, do you regret not pressing charges? Number. Why? Because I'm not in the revenge business, I'm in the accountability business, and sometimes the loudest accountability is silence. People saw. That's enough. She shifted. Do you forgive her? That's not today's topic. A pause. Do you have a message for people who saw the clip and supported you? Yes, I said. Don't wait for someone else to validate your worth. If you're doing the work, if you're standing your ground even quietly, you don't owe anyone a performance. Especially not family. Afterward, I left without talking to anyone. The anchor thanked me. A producer asked if I wanted to review the footage. I declined. On the way home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, old contacts, strangers. Even a few active duty folks I hadn't heard from since my second deployment. One text stood out. Colonel Connolly. That's the best interview I've seen in 20 years. Well said, Major. I smiled at that one. Not because I needed approval, but because it came from someone who knew what it meant to wear the uniform when no one's clapping. I pulled into the driveway. Mom was on the porch. She didn't say anything as I walked up. Just handed me a glass of water, already sweating from the heat. You said it, she said. Yeah. Clean. Direct. I don't know any other way. End of chapter. She took a sip of her own drink. The phones won't stop ringing. They'll stop, once they find a new story. Probably. We sat for a while in silence, then she asked, did it help? I thought about that. It didn't fix anything, I said, but it made the weight feel evenly distributed. She nodded like she understood. Later that night, Courtney called. I didn't answer. She sent a text. I saw the interview. You made your point. That was all it said. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just the implication that she'd been exposed, and that was punishment enough. I didn't reply. The truth wasn't about her, it never was. It was about taking back the narrative that had been twisted, edited, and denied for too long. And now, for once, it belonged to me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't shrinking to fit the room, I was standing in it, fully formed. The days after the interview were strangely calm. The calls slowed, the stares softened. Even the internet moved on, the way it always does. Someone got arrested in Los Angeles. A celebrity divorce leaked. Another scandal took center stage. I stopped trending. And I didn't miss it. I still went to the coffee shop, still ordered my black coffee. The barista didn't flinch this time. No whispers, no free drinks, just a polite smile and a receipt like I was anyone else. That's what I wanted all along, to be treated like a person, not a spectacle. When I walked down Main Street that week, a woman from the school board stopped me. I watched your interview, she said. My daughter's applying to ROTS because of you. I nodded. She'll do great. She's quiet, not like me. She doesn't have to be loud to be strong. The woman smiled like that unlocked something for her. Then she kept walking. No selfies, no drama. Back at home, the air was different. Not fixed, but lighter. The house didn't hum with tension the way it used to. Mom stopped over-explaining everything she did. I stopped pretending I didn't care. One morning, I found a folded note on the kitchen counter. Not from Courtney, from Mom. You were right about everything. I'm sorry I made you prove it so loudly. I'm learning. That's all I can promise. I kept the note. Didn't respond. Didn't need to. Some words finally landed. Courtney stayed quiet. Which, in its own way, was progress. She didn't post another statement. Didn't twist the knife. She just faded back into the part of the town where the spotlight couldn't quite reach anymore. I never got an apology. But I got distance. And sometimes that's better. The military offer stayed on the table. Colonel Connolly emailed once to check in. No pressure. No push. I thought about it longer than I thought I would. I imagined the new office. The influence. The ability to shape how the Army shows up in public, not as a brand, but as people. I knew I could do it. I also knew I didn't need to prove anything anymore. So I wrote back. Sir, respectfully declining. Staying in field command. Still got more to give. R. Lancaster. He replied with 2 words. Understood. Respected. That was enough. One afternoon, I took Mateo's bracelet out of the box and drove 2 hours to his family's house. I hadn't told them I was coming. His mother opened the door and froze when she saw me. I held up the box. I kept my promise. She didn't cry. She just took the box gently, held it against her chest, and nodded. Like she knew the story behind the silence. We sat for a while in the living room. She asked nothing about the video. Nothing about the interview. Just brought out old photo albums and offered lemonade the way she always did. He stayed for dinner. His younger sister asked me about boot camp, I answered. His dad thanked me, not just for my service, but for remembering Mateo as more than a folded flag. That night, driving back with the windows down, I realized something I hadn't said out loud. I didn't just survive what happened at the store. I reclaimed every part of myself that used to get buried under expectations, family guilt, and being the quiet one in the back row. People call it winning the internet. But the real win was remembering I was never lost to begin with. I just needed a moment loud enough for the world to stop and look. And when they did, I didn't perform. I stood. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. And for once, that was enough. It's easy to think power comes from volume, who talks the most, who posts the fastest, who gets the last word. That's how Courtney lived. That's how most of this town works, but not me. I learned early that being quiet didn't mean being small, it meant being strategic. I got up before sunrise on my last day in town, packed my things with military precision, uniform folded tight, gear squared away, left the room cleaner than I found it, just like always. No announcement. No farewell tour, just done. Mom was already awake, sitting at the table with 2 mugs of coffee. She pushed one toward me without speaking. I sat down across from her. You leaving today? I nodded. She didn't try to stop me. Didn't make a scene. She just said, "You'll come back?" I always do. We sat in silence, sipping coffee like civilians for once. No rank. No conflict. Just 2 women trying to navigate the mess they didn't create, but inherited. She looked at me carefully. You're not the same girl who left here 5 years ago. I haven't been that girl in a long time. You're better now. I'm just finally visible. Vet. She reached across the table and rested her hand over mine. Not as a fix, not as an apology, just as something close to understanding. Courtney didn't come to say goodbye. That was fine. Some distances are better left unclosed. I loaded the car, checked the mirrors, and pulled out of the driveway like I had a destination worth arriving for. Not because I was running, because I was done shrinking to fit someone else's story. On the highway, the fields blurred into long stretches of gold and gray. I let the wind rush through the open windows, no music, just motion. It felt good not to fill the silence. At a gas station near the county border, a man in a camo cap nodded at me. Appreciate your service. Thanks. He paused. You the one from the slap video? I didn't flinch. Yeah. He grinned. You stood like a damn statue. That was something else. Just did my job. No, ma'am, he said. You said a bar. That stuck with me. I wasn't trying to be an example. I wasn't trying to go viral. I just wanted to be left alone long enough to live without apologizing for being composed. But if people saw something in that, some kind of strength that doesn't scream, some kind of backbone that doesn't bend, then good. Let them. I made it back to base by nightfall. My unit welcomed me like they always did, with sarcasm, paperwork, and a stale break room donut. Nobody brought up the slap. Nobody mentioned the interview, just good to see you, ma'am, and you ready to brief this nonsense? Yes, always. That night, I sat on my bunk and stared at the ceiling fan spinning like it had a secret. In my locker was the same uniform I wore that day at the jewelry store. Still neatly pressed. Still mine. I didn't need a spotlight to feel valuable. I didn't need a family to clap for me. I didn't need strangers online to make me feel real. What I needed was to walk into a room, any room, and know that I belonged there, with or without applause. You don't need to be loud to be respected. You just need to know who you are before the world decides for you. And I do. I always have. Some revenge stories don't end with screaming matches or courtroom drama. Sometimes, the loudest revenge is living well without seeking approval from the people who never gave it freely. Mine wasn't a war. It was a quiet shift. A reclaiming. In a family drama like ours, where roles are assigned early and rarely questioned, the real rebellion is stepping out of the script and refusing to read your part. I didn't fight my sister. I outgrew her. I didn't need to tear my family apart to get justice. I just needed to stop disappearing in order to keep it together. Call to action. If you've ever lived through messy family drama, or found strength in silence while others made noise, this space is for you. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life family revenge stories with meaning, and raw family drama that doesn't need fiction to hit hard. You're not alone in your story, just quiet enough to be heard the right way.